It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Well, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to jump on the gigantic, sharp, interactive board. I want to go through Ninestar's numbers, the little numbers I was able to find out there. I did find some startling numbers on Yahoo Finance's page. I'll share those in a minute. But ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day, I believe Lexmark, this independently governed subsidiary of Ninestar, according to them, even though Ninestar owns over 60% of their equity, they can still make all their own decisions. I think they should publish the Lexmark numbers. I think it's important for them to publish the Lexmark numbers, and I think that the BTA and I believe the entire industry here in the United States and all over the free world should demand that Lexmark publish their numbers. If they're independently governed and they can make their own damn decisions, make a decision to publish your numbers. You should be held accountable like every other OEM out there. And this nonsense about telling the whole world that you got another supplier and all this crazy stuff and then you don't tell us who it is pure nonsense. I call bullshit on all of it. And at the end of the day, Lexmark, you cannot have it both ways. You know, maybe you need to reach out to Xi, the dictator in China, and get permission first. But no, you don't have to do that because you're an independently governed organization. If you're an independently governed organization, then you should be able to share your financials. That's all I want to say about that. But I did find something on Lexmark's blog on LinkedIn that I think is great advice that they're giving the entire world. You know, on Martin Luther King Day, they put a quote out by Martin Luther King, sharing this with the whole world. And I'm thinking to myself, did Lexmark even read this? Because maybe they should do what Martin's saying. So let me just share it with you. There it is right there. The time is always right to do what is right. Martin Luther King. They put this out there on Martin Luther King Day, and I'm thinking that Lexmark, that's great advice. Maybe you should do what's right. The time is right. Ladies and gentlemen, I put this thermometer on the gigantic, sharp, interactive board. I call it the red hot, mad thermometer. That's the goal. We got to get everybody red hot about this. We got to get mad about the bullshit of not addressing reality from our friends at Lexmark. We got to be mad about the excuses to still do business with any Ninestar subsidiary as far as I'm concerned, trying to justify why it's okay to do business with banned PRC. Just crazy, crazy stuff. So I'm hoping by the end of today's episode, everybody watching, that thermometer will raise and you'll all just get red hot mad. I do have some questions I want to ask of Lexmark, and this goes back to them telling the whole world basically they got a new manufacturer, new supplier. First of all, they need to clarify, did you get a new manufacturer? Did you get a new supplier? I mean, this whole thing, this whole gaslighting going on by Lexmark is really, really disgusting. But here's the reality. They can't have it both ways. So if they got a new supplier, new manufacturer, what about the security for the equipment? Doesn't that change if you got a new manufacturer, new supplier? I mean, all that has to be evaluated, right? Think about all the BLI awards. This is great news for BLI. Lexmark's got a new supplier manufacturing, so all the equipment's going to have to get retested, and all those BLI awards will have to be thrown in the trash because they don't apply anymore. That's going to be only for the old equipment. You know, you're going to have old equipment clarification, and then you're going to have to put something like new supplier, you know, after banned. You're going to have to clarify that or people won't know which one's new, which one hasn't been tested for security yet. A lot of implications when you tell the whole world you got a new supplier, new manufacturer. A lot of implications, Lexmark. Why is the industry allowing Lexmark to avoid truthfulness? And this is just a question I got to ask everybody in the industry. Look, I know there's a lot of, you know, so-called consultants in our industry that are really nothing but crybabies and they don't want to really address anything of any kind of reality. I get it. But at the same time, I think we need to start having some accountability over there to Lexmark. We can't allow them just to tell us whatever they want and then no one does any checkup on any of it. It's just absurd. Can dealers/end users file lawsuits against Lexmark if in fact Ninestar is still their supplier? They said they found a new supplier in November. They didn't really clarify what the hell that new supplier is doing. And the question is, could there be a class action lawsuit to sue Lexmark because they really don't have a new supplier? I mean, I'm just asking the question. See, this is why it's so important that Lexmark share with us who the new suppliers are if you have them. I just don't understand this. I don't know why anybody's not just steaming red hot mad about that stupidity of Lexmark, telling the whole world they got a new supplier, but they don't tell us who it is. Is BTA going to have an updated panel at Orlando meeting? You know, they had one in Boston, and I suggested they have a task force on it, and of course, I don't think they've done a thing since then, and they probably won't. And of course, they don't want me to help them in any way, shape, or form. But I would think maybe Orlando's a good time to do it. Maybe there's something you could scratch off the agenda and go ahead and have another panel discussion. You know, I would do it a little bit different than the last one because the last one was kind of nutty. Why doesn't Lexmark post their financials? What are they hiding? I just think that's a valid question. You can't say you're an independent governed company and then not post your financials. You should be accountable like every other OEM in the planet. And I'm talking about all the details written in English, okay? People can translate the dollar amounts, okay? The RMB to dollars, that's easy to do. But having to translate the entire financials because you don't want to publish them in English is kind of nutty, and I think you should publish them all in English and make it available to everybody in the whole entire free world. What exactly is the purpose of the Indian Rider Distribution Center? Getting this distribution center going on to deal with Rider. What's going on? What's all that about? There should be a big press release on that, I think. What are the equity positions of senior Lexmark leaders? And are they more obligated to the CCP or the U.S. interest? I'm just asking the question. We all know that Ninestar owns over 60% of the equity in Lexmark, meaning there's some other equity out there, okay? And we know there's another private equity group that owns some of that. But are any of these senior leaders, do they have any equity at all? Are they more obligated to the CCP? And the CCP, by the way, is the Chinese Communist Party over U.S. interest. I think it's a valid question because when you look at all the, well, gaslighting that's been going on and what I believe to be outright lies coming out of Lexmark, you would have to think, who's benefiting from this? Here's some numbers. In 2022, the profit was around $170 million. In 2023, I'm seeing profit negative $230 million. I've seen this published a couple of different times. Again, you know, Ninestar would be great if you just published your financials like every other OEM on the planet and made it easy for everybody to read them. That would be fantastic. And anytime you don't do that, I guess you're just probably hiding a bunch of stuff. So in simple math, Ninestar had a difference in profit of $400 million negative over 2022. The printer unit, which includes Lexmark and Phantom, saw around a 26% decrease in revenues and over 92% decrease in profits. Profits falling off the cliff. Again, Lexmark should publicly share their numbers. There's no difference. They should be at the same accountability level as every other OEM on the planet. And our industry should demand it. These are the kind of things that BTA should be really involved in. I went to the Ninestar website, and the first thing I want to tell you is this. Nowhere on the website did it say that Lexmark, their largest subsidiary, is using another manufacturer or supplier. It doesn't say that anywhere. They're just talking about how excited they are that they own Lexmark. They're talking about how they're suing the U.S. government, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, you know, at least Ninestar is communicating to the world, right? Lexmark, they don't say nothing because they're probably not allowed to say anything because that independent government board, they don't get to do anything, is my opinion, right? But they talk about their revenue. In 2022 was 2.8 billion. That's at today's Forex. They had 20 billion RMB. Today's Forex puts it at 2.8 billion. They talk about their market cap, their employees, all that kind of stuff. But ladies and gentlemen, speaking of market cap, this is amazing. 60% decline in market cap over 5 quarters. 3.9 billion. 12/31/22 it was 10.3 billion. So when PRCs get banned by the Department of Homeland Security over the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act, the good news is it affects them financially. And that's the only way sometimes you're going to be able to stop atrocities. You've got to affect them financially. We all know that, right? You affect somebody financially, you stop the atrocities. And it looks like the Department of Homeland Security's ban is working. It's working. There's the Lexmark board, folks, and I got to say it again, you can't have it both ways, Lexmark. If you're going to talk about all this governance and you can do everything you want, then you should be able to publish your numbers. You should be able to go on Fridays with Frank and sit down with Frank and share all the numbers. Just share them all. Tell the whole world everything. Make them public so I can do a video and dig right down in there and look at the assets and the goodwill, all that stuff like I do with everybody else. You can't have it both ways. It's time to execute your independence governance or shut the hell up about it. One or the other. And by the way, the National Security Agreement ensures that Lexmark remains a U.S. company with independent governance approved by the directors consisting entirely of U.S. citizens. It's pretty much irrelevant if they can't make any decisions and do things on their own. And you would think, I'm going to say it again, that they could easily say, here's our financials. They could be audited by American firms and all that stuff, right? Independently governed board. Lexmark, I did see this on your website. I just want to ask a quick question. Do your customers know about your relationship with Ninestar? Do the people over there at Cummins know this? Clayton County Public Schools? Kentucky Elementary Schools? You know, Visaman, do they all know this? Do they know what's going on? Have you shared it with them? Did you tell them that you got a new supplier, a new manufacturer, and all that equipment is being tested for security? Did you tell them all that stuff? I'm just asking the question. Ladies and gentlemen, I found this, talking about the Lexmark printer. Let me just read this to you. By the end of 2019, Lexmark has orderly run the total of 28 production lines at the Zhuhao facility, covering 16 series of products. In 2019, the annual output of Lexmark consumables at the base in Zhuhao has exceeded the previous target. So in 2019, they're bragging about all the stuff that's being manufactured and made in Zhuhao, China, with the Lexmark name on it, right? And now in 2023, because that's when they told us they got a new supplier, November of 2023, all that's going away. They're not doing that anymore. Only some products are. Don't use that printer. It's tainted with the sweat of slave labor, but this one's not. Ladies and gentlemen, we all know who the DHS banned Ninestar subsidiaries are. There they are. Of course, Lexmark's not on that list. But at the end of the day, Ninestar is, and they own 60% of their equity. And if you look at the Pan and Print Lexmark printer, we talked about this before, a lot of similarities. You would think they were all made in Zhuhao, wouldn't you? Lexmark's kicking off a product called Leap for the retail business. I don't know what retail outlet in the world would be using Lexmark products. I really don't. Based on that cross-border transfer data policy, especially when they've never explained any details around that after I brought it up like 9 or 10 times. But now we're going to go shopping with software owned by Lexmark, and we all know that Lexmark is owned by Ninestar. And at the end of the day, holy smokes. Lexmark Engagement Automation Platform, Leap. I would be scared to death to use any kind of cloud services with our friends at Lexmark. Because when you read the cross-border transfer, do I need to read that again? Of course I do. We are a global organization with affiliates, with offices and customers around the world to efficiently manage our business and best serve you. All kinds of data. All kinds of data. Do I need to underline this? All kinds of data. Not just personal data. May be transferred and accessed by Lexmark entities worldwide on the basis of this privacy notice and in alignment with international data privacy standards. And in alignments with international data privacy standards. Who in their right mind believes that anybody in the Chinese Communist Party is in alignment with international data privacy standards? Are you kidding me with this stuff? We may store, transfer, and process personal data in the United States and other countries where we maintain facilities. By using our websites or services, I would say that Leap's one of their services, you consent to any such transfers of information outside your country. I got a circle. I don't know how in the world that Lexmark has not had to have like major webinars on this. They should be doing. I mean, this is just crazy. Crazy. Is your data leaping to the Chinese Communist Party? I'll leave that question open. Maybe Lexmark can answer that. Do an interview in EX Magazine or something. Ladies and gentlemen, the BTA, they can put a task force together. I looked on their bylaws. It only takes 50 active voting members to say we want a task force. I believe that they really should consider that. I believe that they should consider doing an updated panel discussion at the Orlando meeting. The last one they had was in August. I do believe they could format that panel a little bit different. Of course, they don't want any advice from me, but at the end of the day, come on, BTA. I really believe that we need to have a task force looking into this PRC company called Ninestar and start educating the channel on PRCs in general and geopolitics, because this is just the start of more geopolitics problems. I did an episode not too long ago where I talked about what if there was a blockade in the Straits, right? How would that affect the supply chain? Ladies and gentlemen, we need to start paying attention to this stuff. Just because our industry does not like to discuss things that are painful or cause concern doesn't mean we shouldn't be doing it. It means we should be doing it. Because being in fear is not an option. Addressing it head on is what we need to be doing. And folks, let me just end it with this. There's my thermometer, and I am red hot. I am so mad I busted through the thermostat, and I'm hoping that you all are getting mad too. because the bullshit of not addressing reality from Lexmark is really disturbing at all levels. The excuses to still do business with Ninestar and its subsidiaries is really crazy. And at the end of the day, we really need to take this shit seriously, and we need to be asking Lexmark a whole lot more questions than are being asked. And we need to demand that they answer those questions. And I'm really concerned about who has equity in that company. And are they more loyal to the CCP or the U.S. interest? Just some things to think about, my friends, because we all know this. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see you all tomorrow.